Okay, I think we're connected. Looks like everything's a go, so we'll start. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So today we're up to chapter 11 in this look at the teachings in the Visuddhimagga. And this chapter has basically three parts. It has a contemplation called perception of the repulsiveness of nutriment, a meditation on the elements, and finally a brief conclusion, because this chapter concludes the section on samadhi. So we've gone through the 40 meditations of the Visuddhimagga by the time we get to the end of this chapter. Repulsiveness of nutriment is a contemplation to overcome attachment to food and craving for flavors. And it's actually kind of in some ways an entertaining section. As I have said a few times already, I think the intended audience for the Visuddhimagga was a monastic community. It was written by a bhikkhu for bhikkhus, so it makes an assumption that the reader will be getting his food via alms round. And it goes through various ways in which food, which we consider to be so delightful and desirable, actually has a very repulsive aspect. And it begins with the acquiring of food. And there's a few paragraphs describing how the bhikkhu has to leave his clean, calm meditation hut in the monastery and go outside, where he will be walking through mud and filth and encounter all kinds of nasty things like dead animals and the smell of various disgusting things that he comes across. I'll just read this sentence. Next, he enters the grounds, meaning the outer court of the monastery, which are more repulsive than the lower floor, since they are defiled by old grass and leaves blown about by the wind, by sick novices, urine, excrement, spittle, and snot, and in the rainy season by water, mud, and so on. And he has to see the road to the monastery, which is even more repulsive than the grounds. So you can see the idea is these naughty novices are just dropping their waste everywhere. This kind of thing actually goes on for several pages, and then it goes on to the actual disgusting nature of food itself. It only seems delightful until put into the mouth and chewed up and mixed with saliva, and then if it was to be spit out, it would be a repulsive object no one would want. And as it travels through the body, it gets just more and more disgusting, covered in various kind of phlegm and bile and everything else. And then it comes out the far end as the most disgusting of all. So this is another one of the Anusati type meditations, and it's a contemplation that one brings to mind the reality of nutriment rather than the desirability, the prettiness of the food laid out on the plate and the nice smells and tastes. There's actually a lot of other elements go into it that are not so desirable. What it doesn't, as I said, is this is dealing with the situation of a bhikkhu living in a traditional monastery where they go out for alms round, and their particular situation. But mutas mutandis, it could be the same sort of contemplation could apply to a layperson. In some ways, even more so, because if you're purchasing your own food, you have to work to get the money, then you have to go to the supermarket and deal with that, and then you have to take it home and cook it and deal with that. So it's a great deal of time and effort and involved in procuring one's nutriment. Then there's the section on the elements, and this is actually more of a kind of most of this section is more of a kind of Abhidhamma analysis of what's meant by the four elements. It starts with the reference to the Satipatthana Sutta, the simile in the Satipatthana Sutta for contemplation of the elements is a butcher sitting in his roadside stall selling bits of meat. When he has the carcass of a cow, he still has the perception cow. But then when he chops it up with his cleaver and makes cuts of steak to put out for sale, the perception of cow is gone, and now there's just the perception of meat. So we perceive the body as a whole. There's a perception of person, of man, woman, so on. But if we mentally dissect it into the four elements, we're perceiving the combinations of earth, air, fire, and water. So Buddhaghosa doesn't really go into how to very much go into how to develop this as a meditation. There is a section in the commentary to the Satipatthana Sutta that deals with the way of using the four elements in a walking meditation, which I find to be a very good meditation in many ways. It helps to keep the thinking mind busy if that's a problem for you. You notice that you break up the stages of the step into the four elements. So lifting the foot from the ground is fire element. It's the energizing of the body. Moving it forward through space is the air element. Then letting it settle down to the ground is water element. Then pressing it into the earth is earth element. And then of course, you repeat with the other foot. So he goes in for several pages on discussing the four elements, mostly in terms of relation to the body. Some of the body parts, such as skin and bones, are classed under earth element, and some, like blood and spittle, are classed in water element. And then you have the winds in the body. There's respiration, but there's also the winds coursing through the limbs. There was in ancient Indian physiology that they had a kind of pneumatic theory of muscular motion, that the arms and legs, for example, are moved by wind that either contracts or extends the muscles. And fire is the energy in the body that maintains the body's health, and one of its primary functions is digestion. Digesting your food, you're basically cooking it, and that word is used. Then there's a long section talking about the nature of the elements, analyzed in various ways. The main point to understand about the Buddhist theory of elements, four elements, is that the names earth, air, fire, water do not refer to ordinary earth, air, fire, water. They're more like mnemonic devices to describe various qualities or characteristics in physical matter. Earth is Patawi, is the element of extension, or the taking up of space, and it's manifested as hardness or softness. Air is the element of motion, and probably really should be translated wind, vayu, and water is the quality of has the quality of cohesion, and also the taking of shape. The analogy with water is if you pour water into a container, it takes the shape of the container. And fire is energy or heat, and it has the quality of or the characteristic or the function, let's say, of maintaining things. And all four elements are present in every object, although there'll be different strengths of manifestation. So, a rock has all four elements, but it's mostly earth element. The predominant quality is earth element. A glass of water is mostly water element, but all four elements are always present. There's also which comes really from later Abhidhamma, there's an atomic theory. There's the theory of the Dhammas, that each unit of matter, what we might call in modern language, we might call it a molecule, consists of 8 subunits, we might call atoms. There's one for each of the 4 elements, and then there's color, taste, odor, and nutritive essence. So that this is the 8-fold, and sometimes you'll see this phrase in the Visuddhimagga as we go later into more analytical chapters. You'll see the phrase the octad. This means a unit of matter with these 8 subunits. And a living, if it's in a living organism, it has 2 additional units. They are the life faculty, and either the masculine or feminine faculty. So then that's called the decad, the 10-fold unit. So those are referred to in this chapter, and if you're not familiar with it, it may cause some confusion. Um, and there's various ways of contemplating or considering the elements, and there's a long section on the parts of the body and their relation to the elements. And there's a bit of perhaps seemingly odd section where it likens the four great elements to great creatures, and this is really a play on words, because Mahabhuta, which means the great elements, could also mean great beings. And it compares, one of the comparisons he makes is a great being is a yaka, and a female yaka, yakini, has a and there's a few stories in the Jatakas and Dhammapada commentary about female yakas can assume a seductive, beautiful female form and attract males, travelers, and then kill them and eat them. And he says that the elements are like this, that they can assume a pleasing form, but in the end they're subject to destruction. There's a verse here that concludes this section that that references the cosmological idea of the destruction of the world by the elements. The world system can be destroyed either by fire, by water, or by air. So 3 of the 4, and these are referenced here. And then there's a reference to follows how the destruction of the body by the 4 elements can be likened to the 4 families of snakes: wooden mouths, rotten mouths, fiery mouths, and dagger mouths, each one relating to a specific element. The idea here in both cases, in terms of the world system and the biting by snakes, is to impress the impermanence of all things, including the elements. One of the characteristics